An irresponsible distortion of facts. That is how China responded to President Donald Trump's accusation that it was stalling negotiations with North Korea. It's all coming after last week's talks between the U.S. and China in Washington produced no concrete steps towards ending the trade war that started between them last month. And all of it is, of course, connected. Here's the response from the Chinese Foreign Ministry in their own words.
The U.S. cites irresponsible distortion of facts and logic is world-leading and really not something the ordinary person can understand. We hope the U.S. can keep their word like China and play a positive, constructive and responsible role in pushing for a political resolution of the peninsula issue. In the face of some current complications or difficulties, the U.S. should first examine itself and reflect on itself rather than capriciously laying the blame elsewhere.
Well, that heated exchange began where else? Online.
The only place for heated exchanges today. On
Trump
Twitter.
had released a series of posts on Twitter claiming North Korea is under, quote, tremendous pressure from China, supposedly due to the trade dispute between Washington and Beijing. Also on the president's list of grievances, the funds, fuel, and aid that he says China is providing to North Korea. Trump exclaiming on Twitter, quote, this is not helpful. We're joined in studio now by Dr. Alon Levkowitz, a Korea expert at the Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies. Thank you, Dr. Levkowitz, for joining us. So just to get this out of the way, we know China has complicated interests in North Korea and the region. Is there truth to the president's claim that China could be doing more towards an agreement between all the sides that will satisfy Washington and Beijing?
Well, I trust what Trump says. It's the truth. It's very complicated because we have what might be said as a multi-level game between Trump on one side, Xi Jinping on the other side, and we have the Korean Peninsula. And Trump is trying to find leverages to influence Kim Jong-un to accept his offer to have negotiation. He thought that in Singapore, once they agree, according to Trump, to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula, they would do it ASAP. But the North Korean have a different perspective. And for them, it's going to be a long negotiation with a bumpy road. We have billions of dollars of trade war between China and the United States. It's not going to the right direction that Trump expected, that China might kneel in a way or accept his terms. And he thinks that North Korea or the Chinese are using North Korea as a leverage against Trump. It's partially right, but I don't think that China would convince Kim Jong-un to give up its nuclear weapon as soon as possible.
When the trade war first started up, led by President Donald Trump himself, some sort of cringed at the notion that just as President Trump was asking China to play such a critical role in negotiations with North Korea, he was picking a fight with them over an issue like trade. Do you think that there's reasoning to that, or is it a smart tactic that could actually pressure China into helping out?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. We have it's complicated. I would say I'm not sure that Trump started the war with China in order to lure China to pressure North Korea. It's part of the big game between Washington and Beijing.
Will it deter China, though, from playing the role that Trump says they need to play in order to get North Korea to the table?
In a way, Trump thinks that Beijing works for him. They don't work for him. They have different interests. They're trying to, as Beijing like to say all the time, we're trying to have a constructive role in the Korean Peninsula, and they're trying to convince North Korea to move on with the process. Now the question is, does the trade war influence China's role in the Korean Peninsula? It might have a little bit influence, but China doesn't have any interest to increase the tension in the Korean Peninsula. Its interest is to improve the relation between North Korea, the United States, and South Korea. And I would say this it becomes more and more complicated because South Korea, on the one hand, follows Washington rule, but on the other hand, what South Korea is trying to do is to move faster than what Washington wants.
Right. Now, before Trump and Kim met, there was, of course, a very heated exchange between them, also online on Twitter. That seemed to completely...
Rocket Man, yeah.
They seemed to completely resolve their differences when they actually met. And now, of course, the president this week saying that the U.S. will again conduct military exercises with South Korea, which North Korea isn't too happy to hear. What do you make of this diplomatic dance back and forth between the two sides?
When you said they solved all the problems, it's according to Donald Trump. Donald Trump says, he's a nice guy, I'm doing business with him, and then
he said the nuclear threat had been resolved when he came back.
But when they said they're going to renew the military exercise, they didn't say they're going to renew the military exercise next week. It's going to be next year. We're now waiting for September. And on September, we have the meeting at the General Assembly. Plus, we have the meeting between Kim Jong-un and Moon Jae-in, the South Korean president. And what the South Korean president will have to do is try to maneuver between Donald Trump, the Chinese, and the North Korea, trying to improve the relation in order to get things back to base one.
Let's bring it back to what this sort of war between China and President Trump this time around is all about, which is Trump saying that China is hampering getting North Korea to do what it needs to do in this negotiation. What do you think we can actually expect from North Korea at this stage? What should be happening? What is realistic that Pyongyang, the secretive regime that already has a nuclear program, will do next?
Well, it's complicated. Let me explain why. Well, on the upper level, on the official level, we see that there's a clash between Washington and North Korea. But what we can't see is the unofficial negotiation between North Korea and Washington. And this is going on. They created some kind of a communication channel that allows them to communicate, to have negotiation between all sides. But on the other hand, saying we don't negotiate with them. What we can expect from North Korea is to first they want to end the war between the United States and North Korea. They hope to do it by September, if not by the end of the year, as Moon Jae-in explained. We might expect North Korea to give some kind of a nuclear list, what they have, or to start to do some disarmament of its capability. If it doesn't want to do it to the United States, the United States can offer an impartial institute, for example, some of the think tanks that they can do this denuclearization process. But it's a very long process. It's going to be very bumpy, and we're going to meet for ages.
All right. The bottom line, I think, from all of this, it's complicated. You might not believe that from seeing some of the tweets about this conflict, but certainly this conflict is not something that can be summed up in a few hundred characters on social media.